Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Gligar. This is a Pokemon that was the best Pokemon for a full calendar year until it got severely nerfed. However, with the recent buff to Fury Cutter, Gligar, in my view, is most of the way back. It's not the #1 Pokemon in the Great League, but to me, it's probably top 10 to top 15, and it can core break oh so many teams. The team I used today was Swampert on the lead, Furret as the safe switch, and Shadow Gligar as the closer, and I was able to catch so many teams unprepared for Gligar. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We see a very neutral lead in game #1, Swampert staring down Shadow Forretress. Forretress is going to bank energy, safe switching into an Acid Credilli, and the fact that it's an Acid Credilli, I can actually stay in here. Acid is going to be resisted. I'm just going to keep farming. Opponent is going to throw energy. Credillis love to throw Rock Tomb, so I'm going to risk it. We successfully call the Rock Tomb. I save the energy, and now I'm going to bring in Furret. I know Furret is not going to have a lot of play into the Forretress, so I would rather get the Furret on a matchup where at the very least it can hit for neutral damage. They debuff me with the Rock Tomb. I will get to immediately fire off the Trailblaze to boost up my attack. They're banking energy here. They're now going to bring back in the Forretress. The switch clock is up. They are able to save the Credilli, and now I will be firing off Swifts. Swift never going to be doing a ton of damage, but my switch clock will be up after this next move. So I can switch back into the Swampert, and they are going to have to commit their final shield, or they lose all of Forretress's energy. They let it go. In the back is going to be Claydol, so my opponent is running a triple debuff team. But not only are they triple Rock Tomb, they're also triple weak to Shadow Gligar. In comes the Gligar. They don't even build up to the Ice Beam, so I'm never going to be shielding this move. It is just going to be the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb not going to be a problem. In comes Credilli. They banked a bunch of energy from earlier. My attack is now at -2, and I'm going to fully commit to the farm down. My opponent is going to get to a third Rock Tomb, my attack now at -3, and I have a very straightforward path to victory. I just get them low, I switch into Furret to reset the debuff, KO with the Fury Cutter, and now I have 100 energy on this Gligar, and the nice thing for me is that I am no longer debuffed, so I will get to fire off the back-to-back digs. This is going to be more than enough to knock out the Claydol, and despite going up against triple Rock Tomb game 1, we're able to take the win. Dream lead in game #2, Swampert staring down Dedenne. There's going to be a safe switch into Samurott, and I will respond with Furret. Furret is the only Pokemon on this team that loses to Dedenne, so even if they force switch here, which they do by full sending a Mega Horn, that's very okay for me. Since they landed the Mega Horn, I actually decided to go for the Swift here, understanding that I don't think that I can make a second move if I go for the Trailblaze. Instead, I would rather guarantee to try and lock in some damage. It looks like it may have been DRE dependent if I end up getting that move if I went for the Trailblaze first, so I still like the decision to go for the double Swift. They're going to Mega Horn again, that's huge damage onto the Swampert. In the back is Jellicent, and this is a Pokemon that this team is ABA weak to. Both the Gligar and the Swampert do not have great matchups here, but I've already got some chip damage on it, and I'm up a shield, so I will be able to handle it. If I saw Jellicent in the lead, I would get some chip on it with Hydro Cannon and try and catch Shadow Ball onto Furret. It's not a perfect solution. Every team is going to have something that it struggles with on the lead, and this team just happens to be a little bit soft to Jellicent. Gligar is going to be launching Dig at the Jellicent. Jellicent is going to no-shield, and in comes Dedenne. Dedenne obviously has an ability to hit for neutral damage with Play Rough, and I have taken some damage throughout the course of this battle. However, I'm still not in a range where Play Rough would KO, and I can guarantee that by catching the Play Rough onto Swampert. An undercharge from my opponent, but I can bring back in the Gligar, make the dig, and there's just not going to be a survive here from Dedenne. Dedenne is going to get KO'd. In comes Jellicent. We get the resisted Fury Cutter down and take the win. We've actually got same lead in the next match, staring down another Dedenne. They safe switch into Lapras, and I'm more than happy to respond with Furret. Furret does lose the Zero Shield here to Lapras, and I'm actually just going to play the Zeros, because again, I don't need switch advantage if I'm leading into Dedenne, because the team is ABA strong to it. So instead, I would much rather lose alignment and then just go for a massive farm. A Mud Shot down feels a bit ambitious, so I will actually go for the Fury Cutter down here. I will have to give up a shield because I can't quite get the Fury Cutter down, but I will exit with a ton of energy, and obviously this energy is going to be exceedingly threatening into Dedenne. So now Dedenne has a choice. There are bad matchups everywhere. They're going to pick their poison and bring the Dedenne into the Gligar, but they're just so far behind. Dig is going to be no shielded, nearly picking up the one shot, and now I can pressure a shield or just knock them out with the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace goes unshielded, they get KO'd. In the back is Shadow Annihilate. And this matchup is significantly better for Gligar if the Annihilate is Shadow. If the Annihilate is Shadow, then I believe Fury Cutter does 2 damage to Annihilate, whereas if it's the regular, then it only does 1. Here, I have a pretty guaranteed win con just by switching out into the Swampert, because the only way that I can lose is if they ramp up a bunch against the Gligar. I'm able to force a shield with the Hydro Cannon, and now I can just bring back in the Gligar, and my opponent has no way of doubling up on the Rage Fist. So by switching out into the Swampert and forcing the Rage Fist there, they weren't able to like ramp up a bunch against the Gligar. So we're going to make the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to be enough to KO Shadow Annihilate and take the win. Swampert into Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, not a Pokemon I was really expecting to see, but the good news is, if we see it, we have Sludge. Sludge does not one-shot, but it does do quite a lot of damage. Sludge into the Wigglytuff is going to be shielded up, as my opponent is going to look to try and fully fast move through. Now, in the 2 shield, Wigglytuff can actually get a full farm down, but what I can do is throw 2 mud shots, defer the charm onto the Furret, and this is a really impactful decision for this game, because now, later on, I can survive a charm, and as they send Diggersby into Furret, I will be able to make a Sludge versus the Wigglytuff later on, since the charm damage landed on the Furret instead. Thanks to the Trailblaze, my attack is back to normal here. I debated shielding this and going for another Trailblaze, but I was worried about them Scorching Sands debuffing me and then the Trailblaze not doing a lot of damage. So I just decided to take 2 shields for Shadow Gligar for the endgame. Shadow Gligar, this is a bit of an awkward health range for it, as I can eventually Fury Cutter it into dig range, but it's not there quite yet, so I switch into Swampert, and I'm able to make a move. They sacrifice a Marowak here. Basically, my moves would hit anything on their team for quite a lot of damage, so they decide to throw away the Marowak. Marowak gets Fury Cutter down before it makes a move. They still have the Wigglytuff, and they have the Diggersby, but I just have so much energy available on my Gligar. Gligar, I'm going to be no shielding here as Fire Punch comes through, and here I will go for an Aerial Ace. In hindsight, I think I should have just gone for the dig. I wasn't quite sure on the damage ranges. My opponent, the moment I threw the Aerial Ace, should have just switched into the Wigglytuff, but either way, I'm in a pretty nice spot. As it turns out, 2 Aerial Aces will be enough to KO the Wigglytuff. In the moment, I thought I needed a dig plus an Aerial Ace. I forgot how healthy it was, but it turns out double Aerial Ace would have very easily picked up the knockout regardless. So dig into Aerial Ace, KOs. Diggersby is going to get Fury Cutter down, and with 2 shields and a Shadow Gligar, we take the win. Picking up a pretty bad lead in the next match, Swampert into Galarian Moltres. Now, Galarian Moltres on the lead is a core breaker for this team. With Fly, it has way better consistency now, which means that it no longer has to fire off a Brave Bird. I don't know if I can survive this move in the zeros. I think my best play was probably just to play to the zeros here and hope that I could survive it. Because if there's a shield scenario that I win by calling that move, that would be the better play to go for. I was hoping that in the 1 shield, it would put it into Fury Cutter downrange, but it's still just too healthy. So I can bring in the Gligar, I can get it close, but I can't quite get that farm down. That's a bit awkward here, as I will be forced to expend some energy, and I'm kind of on the defensive. Out comes Galarian Corsola. Here I'm going to try and go for a catch, but this is pretty ill-advised. I should have just switched instantly, as it's going to be a Clodsire in the back. And this is actually a winnable endgame for me had I switched instantly into the Furret. The thing that's going to lose me the game is not the Clodsire. The thing that's going to lose me the game is the move that's stored on the Galarian Corsola. They are just going to go straight Sludge Bomb, which is a great situational understanding here, realizing that Sludge Bomb is going to be enough to 2-shot, so they don't ever need to go for the Earthquake. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible. I need this Swift to knock out, and then I'm going to have to make a prediction as to when they throw the Power Gem. The Swift does not KO. There's the combo with the Power Gem, and losing this energy is going to lose me this game. So in hindsight, I still feel like this was winnable. I just had to not give the Corsola such an energy lead. Great lead in the next match. Swampert staring down Typhlosion. They're going to save switch into Shadow Fortress, and I'm very happy just to stay in here to start with the Swampert. Swampert absolutely rocks that Fortress. Fortress now deep into the red, and I'm always just going to let this move go. Fortress is going to go for the Sand Tomb, and now I can switch into the Furret. Furret is going to get a big Sucker Punch farm down, and if they send back in the Typhlosion, which they do, Typhlosion is going to get absolutely crushed behind the strong neutral damage from Swift and Sucker Punch. They're farming up, trying to get to the blast burn, but the energy advantage on the Furret is too good. I'm able to force a shield, and from here, I'm just going to let the Furret go. Very happy to use Furret as a damage sponge. I'm up a shield. I have energy on the Swampert. In the back is Diggersby, and there's just no way for my opponent to ever win this game. Diggersby going to fire off energy here. They're going to go for a bad manner Scorching Sands before they resign the match. You know what? Fair play to them. It was unfortunately just an unwinnable game. Swampert staring down a Talonflame. Obviously, incredible lead for the Swampert. Part of why I really like Swampert on this team is Swampert core breaks a lot of cores that people are trying right now. As you can see here from the fact that we have a Talonflame staying into a Swampert lead. Swampert is going to be committing the shield. Opponent going for the Flame Charge. They're ramping up their damage, but they're never going to be able to incinerate through me, so this is still very okay. Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. They throw on alignment here. That's a pretty massive surprise. I wasn't within 2 mud shots of a move, so they definitely could have thrown on good timing and still forced the shield. But either way, I'm just going to pick up the knockout here. I just want this thing gone. In comes Shadow Drapion. I'm not in a range where an Aqua Tail would knock out, and I win charge attack priority, so they're just going to have to take this damage. They get absolutely rocked by the Swampert. Swampert going to get KO'd by the Crunch, but now I can Fury Cutter down with Gligar in the back. Oh no, traitor! It's Morpeko in the back. And look at these Fury Cutters. Morpeko in absolute shambles. They fire off the resisted electric Aura Wheel, but I Fury Cuttered it already into a quarter HP. Just off this fast move pressure, I can Aerial Ace to pick up the KO. In comes Drapion. They were just running triple weak to Swampert, and Gligar has pretty easy cleanup duty. What a lead for Swampert, staring down Magcargo. Magcargo gonna throw one Incinerate, save switch into a regular Annihilate. Getting chip damage here or a shield with Hydro Cannon is essential, and then I can send in the Gligar. In the moment, by the way, I miscounted. I thought they only had 6 counters, so I end up no shielding. This could have been an Ice Punch, so that's a move I absolutely should have shielded as the Shadow Gligar. But I didn't end up shielding, and I got really lucky that it only ended up being a Rage Fist bait. But if you see a regular Annihilate and they throw on 7 as the Gligar, you should be shielding, as you cannot afford to take the Ice Punch. Now, Aerial Ace does huge damage to that Annihilate, and I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back moves. Aerial Ace picks up the KO. If they bring back in Magcargo, which they do, I overfarmed enough where I can make the dig before the Incinerate registers. Dig picks up the KO. In the back is going to be superior. I get as much Fury Cutter damage as I can, and now I can just send in Furret. And Furret is going to do a great job at neutralizing the energy from the Superior. I debated Shield in the first because they're always going to go for the Frenzy Plant, but I figured I can win either way. So now I can just spam out these Swifts. Opponent is going to let the first go, and actually the fact that they did no Shield the first means that I'm just not going to throw anymore. I'm just going to fully commit to fast move pressure. They're going to make one final move that'll KO the Furret, but they don't have the energy needed to make the move versus Swampert, and with a few resistant Mud Shots, we get to Mud Shot down a Superior and take the win. Double ground strategy paying dividends as we're once again leading into a fire type, this time Typhlosion. Typhlosion throws an Incinerate, safe switches into Jellicent, and I don't even have to switch in right away. I can bank all that energy and then go for it. I will say that's one thing that I'm not as big of a fan of in this current meta, is it feels like there's a lot less flexible Pokemon compared to the meta that we just had. So in this instance, they save switch a Jellicent. I'm able to bank close to 100 energy on the Swampert and send in Furret. Furret just completely shuts down Jellicent, and now I'm not even in a range where one Incinerate will KO. So when they bring in the Typhlosion, I can get a boosted Swift. That's going to force a shield. I have so much energy on the Swampert, so for my opponent, the game is basically already over. Whereas I think I preferred a little bit more when there were more flexible picks available as a safe swap when you could try and generate some kind of advantage. So Swampert, Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded there. They're going to switch into Quagsire as their final Pokemon, and this game is already over. My Shadow Gligar can clean up this game. The Swampert probably could clean it up as well, but I'm going to decide to just let the Swampert go. Aqua Tail's going to land, in comes Gligar, and we can just Fury Cutter down. They will make an Aqua Tail, but Aqua Tail not really a threatening attack. So that's very fine. Gligar able to tank that. We're going to get the full farm down, and Typhlosion is going to resign the match rather than get knocked out with the dig. Hopping into the final match, Swampert into Dedenne one final time. Swampert being a core breaker. Opponent save switches into a Shadow Marowak. And man, not only are they ABA weak to Swampert, they're ABA weak to the Gligar. I'm going to go for the catch as well. A little bit of bad manners there from me. We catch the Bone Club onto the Shadow Gligar. And for my opponent, it's just curtains already. There's just not really anything they can have in the back that would be able to win this game for them. They're going to go for the Rock Slide. That's really not going to do a meaningful amount of damage. They're going to have to bring in their third into the Gligar. They absolutely cannot bring back in the Dedenne. They bring back in the Dedenne, and now they're just going to get rocked by a Dig. So my opponent in a really awkward spot. Dig is going to connect. They're going to fire off a last-second move, and I'm, at this point, just expecting that they're triple weak to Gligar, so I will commit the shield. They have their own Gligar in the back, and that's very okay, as I already have back-to-back Aerial Aces loaded. So my opponent was basically triple weak to a Gligar lead, considering that your own Gligar down a Fury Cutter is still not a winning matchup, and they were also triple weak to Swampert. So having a ground type proving to be a pretty solid strategy. Their Aerial Ace does not knock out. We're able to fire off Hydro Cannon. Down goes Gligar, and we get the Mud Shot down of Dedenne as well. All in all, I think that Shadow Gligar and the regular Gligar as well, they are both really, really solid options as this Great League meta continues to evolve. Defensively, its defensive typing is just absolutely unreal, and with how strong Pokemon like Dedenne are, having something that does a really good job at shutting that down, I think is a real priority. The thing that holds it back from being like the best Pokemon in the meta is how bad Dig is. Obviously, when Gligar got nerfed, Wing Attack got nerfed, and Dig got nerfed as well, and the fast move problem is fixed, but Dig is still pretty bad. But you can't really afford to run Night Slash instead, because then you have no moves that can hit Dedenne for super effective damage. So I think Gligar, it feels very balanced, but it also feels quite good. So I think Gligar, it's a really solid option to add to a lot of teams. It itself also cores incredibly well with Dedenne, because obviously it's going to do well at shutting down the things that Dedenne doesn't want to see, like the Mud Slappers, Clodsire, Pokemon like that. So I do think Shadow Gligar can work very well in a lot of different teams at the current moment. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.